Hello, everyone. This is Dino Chris from Prehistoric Facts, and this is Prehistoric Facts Extra Episode number 113. This is my Surviving Earth review, and so this is about the television paleontology documentary that came out this summer. And I'll talk about like what I think, and I'll talk about each episode, and also my overall thoughts of the show. And so let's actually get started here. So the studio and crew. It debuted on NBC and was produced by Impossible Pictures, and the episodes were on every single Thursday from June 11th to July 30th, 2026. They were also showing the episodes also on Peacock, but of course some people don't have Peacock, and so some people had to rely on watching it on NBC, or otherwise some people like outside the United States and Canada could not actually watch this. And so yeah, that this is actually going to be interesting, and like where they're actually going to also stream this. I'm pretty sure they do have like ways that they did stream it for everybody to see, but but mostly in the North American side of it's mostly on NBC and Peacock, and produced by Impossible Pictures, and it was on every single Thursday, June 11th to July 30th, 2026. Narrator is Josh Goodman, and the music was done by Nitin Shawnee, and of course the executive producer is Tim Haynes. And so if you do recognize Impossible Pictures and also that name Tim Haynes, it's because that is the company, the studio company, and of course the executive producer that did the Walking With series in the late 90s and early 2000s, or all the way into the mid 2000s. And so so this was produced by the creative team that made the Walking With series, not the latest one, but the one that we all grew up with. And so yes, so it was produced by that. And so let's actually go episode to episode, and I'll talk about each animal that are featured in each episode, and of course, the good bits and the bad bits of each episode. So, episode one is called When the Earth Burned, and this took place in the Lake Permian 252 million years ago. And so, the Permian animals that were featured in this was in the animal that we focused on the most in that episode is Inostrancevia, the Gorgonopsid, the largest Gorgonopsid that we know of. And the other animals from the Permian, like elf, Scutosaurus, and Sumanaya. Yeah, Sumanaya. And then you have the Triassic animals that were featured in there, like Siamodus and Dungosuchus, Symbospondylus, and Protopterosaurs. And so these were like mostly got to be the archosaur type of animals, and of course the ichthyosaur, Symbospondylus. And so the good of this episode is Pangea. And so they focused on Pangea. They showed a map of Pangea, what Earth looked like around during that kind of time. Inostrancevia behavior. That was actually interesting to watch. They kind of showcased them as like a pride of lions in a way, and trying to survive the extinction and all that sorts of stuff. The Siberian traps, they actually showcased in the globe where the volcanic eruptions were actually taking place, and just showcasing that like it was just keep on cracking, and the Earth's crust kept cracking, and of course the magma and lava kept on spewing and spewing and spewing, and so it was the Siberian traps. The climate changes, so you have rising temperatures, and of course the toxic gases that were actually being emitted by this volcanic eruption. And of course, in terms with Inostrancevia, we also get a male versus male type of fight in there, and you get to see the damage that the older male actually had in terms of scars of the that male actually went through. Like one eye, it was damaged because it was blind in one eye, whereas the younger male got new scars or damage from the fight, but ultimately the younger male uh, ultimately lost. the adaptations that certain types of animals that were actually being showcased in this episode, especially like during the end Permian extinction event, and of course, then you get to see in the Triassic the archosaurs. The archosaurs were the ones that dominated the planet uh, around in the Triassic. The bad bits of this episode is mostly using the word alpha in there. So like alpha is not a really good term in terms of like what is the dominant like like type of sex involving like leading a group. That does not work. Wrong word use, and so some of the dialogue in this episode was a little bit iffy at times. No location details, and so that is a problem with this episode, is that we don't get to know where takes place, but we kind of actually get an idea where it is, because where you hear about the Siberian traps, you guess where it is. It's in Russia. And so, yeah, that was a little bit of a problem. And no Permian Seas outcome. This was a problem there too, is that they didn't showcase the like what happened in the ocean. All they cared about was basically what happened on the land, because majority of that extinction was in the oceans. And so that was a problem with this episode, but it was still a neat episode. I did like the designs of the Inostrancevia, and even like Symbospondylus being a or early ichthyosaur. I did like that, and so that was actually interesting to see. But it was an okay episode in my opinion. Episode 2, that is called When the Climate Broke. So this took place during the Triassic 232 million years ago, and we get to see all these different kinds of Triassic animals. So this is like, it starts out like during like the end of that time where it rained for quite a long time, like periodically, of course, but it was raining most of the time around that million-year stretch. But of course, periodically, remember that it was periodically. And so the title, or the like featured animal that we actually get to look at the most is Ishigualastia, so a type of, I think it's a dicynodont, if I remember correctly. And then you actually get like other types of reptiles around here, even like other like synapsids, but of course Ishigualastia is a synapsid. You got Panphagia, excuse me, which is a type of archosaurid type of animal, which is considered to be like one of the very first dinosaurs. And then, of course, you also have Herodapodon, type of reptilian type of creature. And then, of course, Saurosuchus, the top predator during that kind of time. And then we actually get into the Triassic, a little bit further into the Triassic, we actually get Chaleminia, a type of early mammal type of creature. And then you get dinosaurs like Zoopasaurus and Lesomsaurus. And so the good bits of this episode, Pangea, of course, Pangea was featured a lot. It was featured in this. We get the first dinosaurs that actually happened, and this is like I mentioned before, the pluvial like age of the Triassic. And then you have the beginning part of that extinction is the extended dry season. And so this is when like the rains completely stopped. The dry season just kept on going and going and going, and so it really was a very hard time for a lot of those animals. The struggle to adapt was actually interesting in that episode, and we get to see the omnivorous diet from Panphagia. Panphagia, which is one of the earlier dinosaurs, and so we see the omnivorous diet, and of course it was proclaimed here is that by some scientists that actually get to watch that episode, saying that this was an early sauropodomorph and that sort of thing. And then we get the first gigantic sauropodomorphs that actually showed up, which is Lesomsaurus or Zoopasaurus. I think it's Zoopasaurus. And then you get the early theropods, which is Lesomsaurus, and yeah, and then you get the early mammals, which is Chalemnia. The bad bits of this episode, it was a very rushed story. You can definitely tell by like how the dialogue was and how this episode was written, and of course the CGI fur on the Chalemania. The CGI fur was really bad in that on that animal. It was just not. It did not look good. Episode 3, When the Asteroid Fell. So this is basically the KPG extinction event, late Cretaceous 66 million years ago. And so the Cretaceous animals that we get to see, which is the focused animal, is Nanuqsaurus. So this takes place up in Alaska. And so the Prince Creek Formation up in Alaska. And you get Edmontosaurus, Unocamis, a type of mammal. Then we got Sornolitholestes, which is a type of dromaeosaur. And then you get Asteriornis, a type of bird. And then the Paleocene animals that we get to see is Plesiodapus, Cosmodraco, and then of course Titanoides. And so those are the types of animals that we get to see in that episode. The good, feathers. Feathers on the Nuxsaurus, and of course, like on the other theropods that we see in this episode. Very well done. I like how the color of the feathers were on Nanuqsaurus for like say during like the like on the winter months it was mostly white, but then as it got warmer, it would start to go into like a more grayish type of color. Nesting of the Nanuqsaurus was actually pretty neat. The asteroid impact was very well done, showcasing where it was hit and also the aftermath bits of like what actually happened too. So like the shock wave, the tsunamis, and the debris and all that sorts of stuff. Then you get to the part where like you get to see all these types of like things that start to happen, like scavenging, uh, of course, and then of course the social behavior of tyrannosaurs was featured in here. The freezing from like the cloud of dust that actually like covered the atmosphere or engulfed the atmosphere, blocking out the sun, uh, dropping temperatures, and you actually see a lot of things happening with this too, and you get cannibalism that actually happens here when the Nanuqsaurus could not find any large herbivores to be able to feast upon, and so they have to kind of eat each other in order to try to survive. And of course, it's a very, and you kind of feel sorry, you kind of feel very bad for the Nanuqsaurus pair that you get to follow, and so it was kind of like a sad story in a way. Birds that were featured in here. That was very well done. And size mattered. Of course, that what is actually the point here of that episode is that size mattered. So anything that was smaller than a domesticated pig survived and was able to actually uh, eat less food and be able to survive longer and all that. And then we get to the rise of mammals, get into the Paleocene, and that is just awesome. The pacing of this episode was really fast. It was a very fast episode. It kind of felt like it was very short when you think about it in terms of the writing. So it was kind of like one of those ones where you just go like, could have actually done better for the pacing. And of course the ball mammalian predators that I had a problem with. I was like, how do you actually have mammalian predators that are bald? Like, I get it's a rainforest environment, but some of these mammalian predators did have hair. It's like, why make them bald? That just did not make any sense. I guess it was more like a budgetary reason that they could not add more fur to the titanoides. Episode 4 was When the Seas Died. And so this took place in the late Cretaceous period, 94 million years ago. And the animals that were featured in here were Spinosaurus, Ichthyornis, Brachyturius, or Brachytenius. They're ammonites. You got Portunatasaurus, Nodosaurus, Pteranodon, Cratoxyrhina, and Tylosaurus. And so the good bits was bird behavior, especially with Ichthyornis. The bird behavior was very well done in that. protection from sharks, especially from the pliosaurs. The pliosaurs were actually featured a lot in this episode. Spinosaurus was actually like the secondary, like focused animal, but it was mainly the pliosaurs, which is Brachocinius. Mosasaur relatives, and so that was Portunatasaurus, the Mosasaur relatives. I thought those guys were actually featured pretty good, and design was really good. The algae blooms, that actually was the reason why this extinction happened. The tropical storms, so the warming and the temperatures going up and showcasing that like it got really humid, and of course it started getting dry as well, and so that was where the tropical storms came to effect. And the tropical storm that they had to do for this episode was a very strong tropical storm that they actually did. Live birth in terms of the pliosaur, and of course the aftermath of the storm. Boy, was it a devastating storm, and you get the mother pliosaur that ultimately perished into this and all that. But then we get later into Cretaceous. That's when we actually get to see the pteranodon, the pterosaur diving. That was actually very well done. I love that bit from uh, that part of the episode. And of course, you got like it's like the kill or be killed mentality of the ocean or the seas, or later in the part of the Cretaceous period, and you get to see the Cretoxy rhino attack, just like attack uh the pteranodon, and then of course the Tylosaurus eating the shark, and so that was like a cute predator get predator eats predator, and bigger predator eats predator, that sort of thing. The bad of this episode, osteoderms. There were osteoderms that were put in onto some animals, especially the Spinosaurus. I did not like that. I thought that was just like something that they probably shouldn't have done for that episode, and all that, and even like some bits of osteoderms was featured in some marine reptiles. I did not like that either. And of course, the fighting, especially with the Portunatasaurus, they kind of featured it as like, oh, it was like one fight started, and all of a sudden everybody started fighting. It just like that did not make any sense. That was just like story purposes. That was for entertainment wise, but like really, did they really need to show that? But yeah, this one was actually a little bit better than the previous three episodes. But I probably would say is that there were certain things they probably could have done better on that one. Episode 5, When the Forest Collapsed. So this took place in the late Carboniferous 305 million years ago. And so we get to see the end of the Carboniferous. And so we get like in times of before the dinosaurs, which is actually pretty cool. Even before the Permian, which is actually really cool. And so the Carboniferous animals that we get to see is Diplocaulus, even though Diplocaulus is also featured in the Permian and the early Permian parts as well. The Lepidodendron, the type of plant that was related to ferns, featured in the Carboniferous. Dendromaya, type of like reptilian type of creature. And you get Ariops, the giant amphibian. And you also have Arthroplura, the giant millipede relative. And then, of course, the shark relative, Orthocanthus, making an appearance in this one. And then the Permian, the two animals that we get to see in here is the Contalorhynchus, the bizarre herbivorous animal that has a very small head and a very large body. That type of animal. And then, of course, we get to the icon of the Permian, Dimetrodon. Dimetrodon was very, very well done in terms of its overall design. I loved the design of the Dimetrodon. The good bits of this episode was high oxygen levels that they actually had to talk about in terms of the Carboniferous, where like the high oxygen levels. You get the giant insects, you get the giant dragonfly type of relatives that were in this episode. I thought those were really, really cool. And of course, you get the first reptiles. That's why I put it in quotes. It's reptiles. Is that like, were they really reptiles, or did they just actually just put it in as like, we don't want to confuse people, so they actually have to go like, okay, these are the first true land animals, and so true land vertebrates. These are the first true land vertebrates, so to speak. Infrasound, especially with the Ariops. I thought that was really cool, showcasing that like it had like a crocodilian type of like behavior. I thought that was cool. Talking about the coal that would actually talk about the carboniferous like swamps and plants that would ultimately become our type of coal that we know today. Global cooling that was actually featured very nicely, and how the environment got dry and it got less and less humid. And then of course you get the waterproof eggs that were featured in this episode for like the land vertebrates, true land vertebrates. And then we get to the Permian, and we see the like the conifers and of course the toxic plants that they had to evolved to actually avoid being eaten and all that sorts of stuff. And then, of course, herds, the herds of the Cotylorinchus being featured in here. The bad of this episode was the variant fight that we actually get to see with the Ariops. I thought that was kind of strange, but like, could that have happened? Maybe. And then, of course, calling Dimetrodon a reptile. That was bad. That was very, very bad. That was bad dialogue. And so, whoever decided to do that, they were not up to date with the current like landscape of paleontology. The episode 6 was when the ocean shrank, and this took place in the late Ordovician, 444 million years ago. And the Ordovician animals that we get to see is Sarcobambaspis, the jawless fish that's become a meme. We got Mega, Megalograptos, which is a eurypterid. We got king knights. I forgot what those were called. I think they were. Oh yeah, those were the worms. Those were the worms. And then of course we got Endoceras, a giant orthocone. And then we get to the Silurian, even though they don't say it in this episode, but it's in the Silurian. We got Nerepisacanthus, a type of jawed fish, and we got prototaxites, which are the like large structures that we get to see on land that have been highly debated for many decades, for many years, but now they're actually like their own type of thing. Even though they did call them fungus in this episode, but that's not true anymore. Um, but even though a lot of this was actually done way before some of these new information about it. The good of this episode, life in the oceans, that was very well done. Um, the trilobites were actually featured here pretty good too. We also had the crinoids, those like sea lily type of creatures. Those were very beautiful, very colorful. I love that. Vertical swimming orthocones. I think that was pretty much what they did, and because since they did not have the structures necessary to actually do like horizontal swimming, so they had to swim vertically on the barren land. Oh my gosh, that was well done. And I'm pretty sure they had to go on location for that into like an area where it was super dry. There was no like plants and all that sorts of stuff. That was really good. The ice sheets, so the global cooling that actually happened, that was done, and of course the receding oceans, so that would actually grew those ice sheets, and then of course the invertebrates on land when we get to the Silurian, so the invertebrates actually became the first land animals. And so we get eurypterid type of creatures that look a lot like modern day scorpions, and we get more fish in the ocean, and of course plants on land, and that is actually a very nice transition right there, as that plant started to become part of the land. The bad bits of the episode, we kind of do see modern animals in the ocean. That was kind of like inevitable, that because they had to film this one underwater, so it was inevitable that that was going to happen. And of course, the bioluminescence of the orthocones. That was a interesting choice. I would say that was more of an interesting choice, but I would probably say like it was fine for what it was. But like we don't have any evidence to suggest is that they did do this, but it's a possibility. But nonetheless, pretty solid, pretty good episode though. Episode 7, that is called When the Continents Collided, and that took place during the Pleistocene epoch of 2.5 million years ago. And so we got Cuvianus, and so that's the Gomphotheres, so these are the elephant relatives. Got Smilodon, we got two species that are featured here of Smilodon. We have Glyptotherium, the giant armadillo relative. We got Toxodon from South America. We got ground sloths, giant ground sloths from South America, and we get terror birds, the forest rockheads, featured in this episode. The good bits of this episode: a rare twin birth in amongst the Gomphotheres. That is actually really neat. I actually love that in terms of the storytelling. Smilodon, Gracilis, and Populator. We get Gracilis mostly in this episode, but Populator comes pretty much at the end of this episode, and that is actually nice that they actually showcase that, like, that we got two different types of species that actually were around, especially the early Smilodon that were smaller and basically were from North America and ultimately did migrate to South America. And when they did get to South America, they got bigger and bigger to actually become Populator. Then we have the herd behavior of the Gomphotheres that was very well done, especially using elephants as a really good example. Calves being playful, that's actually a nice touch in terms of the herd behavior. The migration, that was actually a very nice thing that they did with the elephant herd behavior. The struggle of getting to like find water and food for these Gomphotheres is actually really, really interesting to watch. And then you got the processing of the newcomers, how the South American animals viewed these North American animals that were coming in. That was actually interesting to seeing like these animals being so confused, and even the Gomphotheres being confused of what types of animals that they were looking at. And of course, the predators moving into South America, and so that would be the Smilodon gracilis moving into South America. And so, and then we get to the bad part of this episode really is the calf surviving crossing the sea. I was like, what? It got swept away from the sea. How on earth did it get back to the herd? It made no sense to me in that part in terms of the storytelling, but I understand you don't want to kill the calf. I understand that. But yeah. But like, this episode was probably the best episode of all of them. And so I would say if you're interested in like how the Great American Interchange actually happened, even though this is not technically an extinction event, this is more of how animals had to adapt when this type of event happened. And then episode 8, and that is called When America Flooded. And this is the final episode, and so this took place 12,000 years ago in the Pleistocene epoch. The animals that were featured here were Arctodus simus, which is the giant short-faced bear, the dire wolf, mastodons, the American mastodon, woolly mammoth, and of course Cervalis or Serval says Scotty, which is the stag moose. The good bits of this episode: the lone wolf, dire wolf at the beginning part, when trying to find something to eat, in order to actually be able to get the food that it needs, and then of course protecting the bear cubs, and so that was it's basically following the Arctodus simus, mostly in this episode, and so the mother, short-faced bear, protecting its cubs from the dire wolf, that sort of thing. And then we see human settlement in this episode. But at first, the humans were very few and far between when it came to like being in North America at that point in time. And so they were very few and far between, even though the short-faced bear was preying on them early on in the episode. And so that was interesting. Pack hunting by the dire wolves to go after the stag moose was actually pretty cool. And then you get the dam breaking, the ice dam breaking, and so that is pretty much what this extinction really is that this is the Great American Flood that actually happened around 12,000 years ago in the Pleistocene, and so the ice sheets broke, and pretty much all that meltwater just came onto the land and caused us so much devastation and left scars that are still around today. from that type of event. The massive flash flood was actually depicted very nicely. The bear fight, which is the female versus the male, uh, in this episode, that was very cool. And then, of course, another ice age actually came to be because of all that that cold fresh water going into the Atlantic Ocean, shutting down that warm current that actually carried warm water towards Europe. And then you have the desperation by the short-faced bear, and then of course he shows human survival. And so then, like, after that event, humans started to actually like take their foothold a little bit more in that episode. And then in the bad part of this episode, the CGI was not good in this one. The CGI was not finished in this episode. You kind of tell with like the short-faced bear and even some bits of the mammoth and mastodon. It seemed like they were not totally finished with that. And even some of the ice blocks that were left behind from the flood, that did not look like they were finished either. So that was kind of a little bit of a disappointment. Overall, I thought this was a very solid documentary, showcasing like each extinction event, even though one was not technically an extinction event. But yeah, it was very solid. Showing animals never seen in a paleo documentary, I thought that was very nice. I thought that was a very good choice because we're so used to seeing like all these like very famous animals that we see in paleontology documentaries, especially with the KPG extinction event. We always go to the Hell Creek. We always go to the Hell Creek. You know, we see Tyrannosaurus Rex, we see Triceratops, we see Edmontosaurus, you know, the whole nine yards with that one. And so doing the Prince Creek formation was actually a pretty nice choice to do that. And some practical effects and CGI was actually kind of pretty good, but some of the CGI did not look finished in some episodes. Dialogue was not great. Dialogue was not great for the narration. It seemed like it could have been better. It could have been better. And it seemed like there were some story elements missing. I just felt like that this could have been better if it was written a tad bit better, and of course, have some CGI that was finished. That's what I would have liked. So I give this a 6.5 out of 10. It's solid, and so if you do get a chance to go watch it on Peacock and all that sorts of stuff. And so if you do get that chance, go watch it. And so if it, and like let me know what did you think of Surviving Earth? Did you like it? Did you think it was okay, or did you not like it? So let me know in the comments down below. Next episode will be on August 6th, 2026. That'll be a special episode to let you guys know what kind of prehistoric animal I'm going to do. And so if you got a request for a prehistoric animal that you want me to do for a special episode, please let me know in the comment section down below. And it's got to be an animal that I have not done before. It's got to be a vertebrate. So just let you know, it's got to be a vertebrate. So it's got to be a prehistoric animal that I have not done yet, or otherwise maybe I have done this animal like maybe like 3 years and further beyond, and it probably could need like a revitalized version, a revitalized or actually a different type of special episode for that one, or just up to date. So please let me know in the comments down below which animal you want me to do for a special episode in the future. But you could still send me questions about dinosaurs and other prehistoric life by emailing me at dinochris71@gmail.com, or just go to my Facebook page, Prehistoric Facts with Dino Chris. Like the page, you guys should post your questions in the comment section. Please put them in the comment section. Don't put them on Messenger. Messengers are private conversations only. So please put your questions in the comment section on any Facebook post. And also for you YouTubers out there, like the videos, subscribe to the channel. According to my analytics, a lot of you guys are checking out my channel and not subscribed yet, so please feel free to hit that subscribe button and also hit the like button, because that's how the YouTube algorithm works. The more likes the video gets, the more likely the video gets spread out to people that are interested in dinosaurs, prehistoric life, paleontology, and geology in general, so please feel free to do so. And also share the videos, share the channel to anybody that is interested in dinosaurs, prehistoric life, paleontology, and geology in general, so please feel free to do so. You can also hit that notification bell so that way you can get weekly notifications of every video that comes out. This one's kind of the exception. And you can also check out you can go on my channel, go on the post tab. You'll see I post like updates on videos and of course news in paleontology, mainly in the dinosaur things in terms of news, but I'll occasionally post stuff for like prehistoric reptiles on occasion, whatever it actually fits best for the channel. And of course, I post polls every 3 days on the channel, so that way you guys can participate in the polls, and you guys are doing great in participating in the polls. And also for you YouTubers out there, leave your questions in the comment section because I do read them all. All of you guys are sending me questions via email, Facebook, and YouTube. You guys are awesome. Give me great questions for the Q&A episodes, so keep up the great work. And also make sure you keep your questions short and to the point. You can also follow me on Instagram at dino.chris.pf. I post pretty cool stuff on there. You can also follow me on Threads, same thing, at dino.chris.pf. I post pretty cool stuff on there as well. Also, take care of the people around you, and also for younger people out there, make sure you listen to your parents, your teachers, and your guardians. It's the best motivation you could have for a good education. It's very important to have good educations. With a good education, you get a good job in the future. That's it for now. Now, I'll see you guys next time.